Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome back. We don't have that many more classes left in this year. For the next few weeks, the first Sunday in May is Marathon Sunday, which means the streets are blocked. We can't have service. Right after that is the annual parish meeting. But tentatively, we're on chapter 33. How many chapters are there in the book of Genesis? 50. And they're all really good parts to it. There are probably one or two chapters we can skip, but tentatively to resume this in the fall, which would allow us through like Christmas thereabouts to finish the book. I'm going on sabbatical a year from today, and well, that sounded way more, oh, yay! Like, oh, that's terrible. And I'll be gone for several months there, but we'll figure out what to do during that time. Would you open us in prayer? I'll call it in a minute.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu tzavanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We thank you, God, for giving us these texts and encouraging us to find within them meaning. Amen.
I want to note briefly, before we get into the story with Genesis, in the Christian church here, we're in the season of Easter. In most Protestant Christians, certainly in America, Easter was one day and it's over, and you got rid of your Easter baskets, you're still eating candy, but it's done. In our tradition, Episcopal, Anglican, to a degree, Lutheran, even some Methodist, Catholic, Easter is a season of 50 days, and so we still point to the resurrection all the way through. And we just went through last week, Holy Week, in our view, the holiest time of the year, walking through the steps of the final parts of the life of Christ and telling the story in various different ways. We tried something new here at Jez on Good Friday. What is Good Friday, by the way? It's the day we observe Jesus died, the crucifixion. And one way we observe that is we try to act out different parts. Monday, Thursday, we strip the altar, preparing for meeting, take everything out. And on Good Friday, a group of people, 3 or 4 usually, chant the Gospel of John. And it's called the Passion Gospel. The Passion refers to the last days of Jesus. His trial, the beatings, all the suffering, the crucifixion, leading up to everything until the resurrection. That's what happens on Good Friday. And Jez, you wanted to say something about that?
Indeed. How many Good Friday services have I been to? Many, many. I have never gone to a more powerful Good Friday service as we did here. And I was telling Jonathan this, and the reason why was how the Passion was chanted. We've done the Stations of the Cross, but nothing was as powerful as this. And it felt so real to me. I'm getting chills talking about it. It was as tragic as the event was, it was beautiful. And it was very, very well done. It was
Thanks.
Excellent.
Why I wanted to draw attention to that, because if you're familiar with the Passion Gospel from John, which that's the one we traditionally use on Good Friday, it is very hard to hear in today's ears, let's say even particularly in Pittsburgh. And it's been increasingly difficult for me and for many people because it says over and over, who crucified Jesus? That's the real point. Excellent. Gold star, Susie. But it uses the phrase, the Jews, over and over. And even in my opinion, where that's not really what it means, and there are two really distinct ways, but it uses the same term, the Jews. Sometimes it refers to the religious authorities, the bishops, the leaders. You could even say it's the establishment. The ruling order in whatever the culture may be, the people in charge with the power. And sometimes when it says the Jews, it's really referring to the crowds, almost like a mob. And we haven't seen that in the last 5 years or so. Apparently I'm in trouble for talking about this. But the Jews doesn't mean the Jews, like we think about it, people from Israel or those of Jewish heritage or religion or whatever. And for several years we've thought about it, we being Calvary staff, and then when you have a brilliant, dynamic, dare we say handsome and humble rabbi on staff, how can we convey the intent of this without taking away and compromising the theological integrity, with making it elegant language still? Because in my opinion, a lot of what passes for inclusive or non-offensive language is clunky and ugly and just not very good. It's not poetic. And it's also got to pass muster musically. It needs to fit within the context. And so Alan Lewis and Aaron Bisno and Cameron Solis and I looked at it and looked at several other translations and rewrote it, trying again to keep it all together. And what we came up with is, with also an explanation, is what we sang or chanted this past Good Friday. And I think that was the first go. We noticed a couple, we said the wrong thing one spot and we should have changed this. But the basic idea was really good. We usually translate it as the chief priest, the people in charge, and then the mobs or the crowds. And it really worked because it felt at a visceral level to me very different than the other one. And if we were in a totally different context, it wouldn't matter, but it is our context, and so it matters. Charles?
Do we know who actually pounded the nails into the cross? Were they
Who-
Roman soldiers?
Who pounded the nails in with Jesus' arm in the way into the cross? That would have been Roman soldiers. It would have not been an officer, because things now and then work the same way. Stuff flows downhill, and you make just the enlisted guy do the dig the ditch and kill the person and do the guard duty. And it would have been Pontius Pilate, the governor, Roman governor, gave the order, and there are reasons why he did that. And then it would have gone down the chain of command to whatever the centurion or the captain, that type of equivalent. Okay, you two guys, you go, you're in charge. Just like you two guys, you're the guards at the tomb the next day. They by the way, lost their jobs after that because the prisoner escaped, the dead prisoner at that. But it would have been Roman soldiers. So the real question is, who crucified Jesus? Was it Roman soldiers? To a degree, yes. Was it some Jews? I guess. But is it everybody? Yes, that's the point of the story. All of us, everyone, the whole world. And in a different way, for the whole world did he offer himself. So it's all those things operating together at the same time. Yep. Remember too, and Aaron has some really interesting points about this later, of how all of our Christian history is, we could look back, in some ways you could say it's a cultural appropriation, or you could say, but that's our family, at least cousins, if not grandparents type of family. So when Christians look to Judaism, I have never thought of it, the term is supersessionist. Well, that's to show you I went to seminary. What does supersessionist mean? The Christianity replaced Judaism. We are the new Israel. We're the new ones. We inherited it, not the old ones. There is a strain of that within the Bible for sure, and within Christianity for sure. As I said before, I've never really thought that way. I've always viewed this as, through Jesus, other people, Gentiles, are grafted in. That's part of the argument Paul makes in Romans. Grafted into the covenant. Like you take a plant and put in this new piece into the tree of life. That's what's occurring there. Is it just a different way to think about the whole thing? So these stories, I've never viewed them as cultural appropriation. I now view them as my adopted family's stories. I've said this before. My father now is dead, so it's easier to talk about. My surname is not originally Jensen. That's an adopted name from a stepfather. It was Watkins, and the whole different family history. But could you say that my last name of Jensen, that I've known since I was, well, before I could think about such things as a 1-year-old, that's always been my name. So which is my real name? Which is my real identity? Which is my real family history? Well, multiple family histories, like we all have. You can claim that. And so think of our Jewish roots as that's where we come from. These are all our people, just distantly and with lots of connections, interconnections, and where I'm from, families split up, and other people live together. And it's weird and it's imperfect, and that's what these stories are in the Hebrew Bible.
Yes.
Or Old Testament. Are you offended by that?
No.
Just be respectful, whoever you're talking to. Aaron is really impossible to offend, so I've learned, so you can say whatever you want. Judy. So she said she wasn't here Good Friday. You could watch the service online, would be what I would recommend. So the 12 or 15 minute, I guess it's about 12 minutes, the chanted Gospel of John. So where it says the Jews, some places it's changed to the chief priest, some places it's changed to the mob or the crowds. It's subtle changes like that. Yep. It says that in the bulletin, what we changed and why. I don't like just doing stuff without an explanation and telling you what happened. And I felt good with it. Alan felt good with it musically. You did. Cameron did. And we did it. Can we do that? No. Do we have permission? Not really. But it was an important thing we thought to offer, is maybe that will become adopted. Is that official now, what we call canon or the standard? No, but that's probably what we're going to use, or some version of that. It's not the end of the world either. Susie?
What would have happened to God's story if we said, Jesus is right and we'll accept that? Would God just saw heaven or something out of shock?
If all of us accepted that Jesus was right, I would say, not trying to be funny, but the world would be a much better place. I think practicing something we've said multiple times, I'm not, as a Christian, trying to convert Aaron or Tom to be a Christian. I'm trying to convert all the Christians to be better, more deeper, more authentic Christians. And I'm also hoping all the Jews become deeper, more faithful, more authentic Jews. Like, if you're going to be Jewish, be the best Jew you can be. If you're going to be Christian, be the best Christian you can be, the most faithful. And I think that's what Jesus was going for. There are lots of things we could talk about regarding to that, but I'm focused on my life, my family's life, before I'm interested in converting everybody else. I'm trying to make sure that God is converting me more deeply all the time, or at least that's the idea. This chapter, 33, picks up the story of Jacob, the patriarch, Abraham, who's Abraham's main son, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the lineage. And Jacob, the son, you remember, he's the younger brother of Esau. Esau's manly man, outdoorsman. Jacob lives in tents with his mom. Jacob steals the birthright from Esau, realizes that he's going to be killed by his much tougher brother because mom and Jacob hatched a plan to steal this from the old blind father. All hell breaks loose. She says, "Oh, my favorite son, you need to get out of town. And, by the way, you need to go find a wife back in the old country, Mesopotamia," and sends him away. So, A, his brother doesn't kill him. B, so he can go find a wife. And C, so like larger theological God point of view framework, because the lineage needs to continue so God's promises can endure and be fulfilled, and so this offspring will inherit the land. But if he doesn't have a wife and kids, that's not going to happen. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. So he goes off, gets rich with sheep and camels and goats and all the rest. and is coming back, but oh gosh, now I got to meet my brother. And my brother is big and tough, and I'm rich, but I'm still, even though he worked as a shepherd, I envisioned Jacob's hands were soft. Esau is still the manly man. He's the guy that would grab your hand and just swallow it when he shook it and look you in the eye, and you could be intimidated. And so Jacob, on his way back, sends all the animals and family ahead across the river, and he stays there and he prays, and then at night he encounters a man, an angel. Eventually he determines it's God, and they wrestle all night. And what happens to him? What three things happen to Jacob as a result of that? He gets a new name. He's now called Israel. And it goes back and forth, by the way. Like you could have your given name and then your nickname, similar things happening. Israel means one who
wrestles or struggles with God. Secondly, he gets knocked in the hip and becomes a cripple as a sign of that. And thirdly, he receives, which is kind of related to all this, a blessing from this God figure, the God figure. And that is on the way. There's this little interlude at night. On his way, he still got to meet the big, bad, scary brother the next day. But not just his brother. Who does the brother bring with him? His whole gang. And they are packing, and they are mad, and they're mad as hell, and they're tough, and there are 400 of them. And what has he got? Some kids, 2 wives, 2 girlfriends. Oh my God, I'm already thinking. All these animals, the handlers and all the rest of it. And he's got no chance. And so what does he do to try to appease his brother?
He sends out the kids in them.
Well, that's worse in my opinion. First he says, oh, hey, maybe if I bribe him with a whole bunch of money in the form of sheep, goats, camels, and the rest, a whole bunch of money, and I'll send it in 3 installments. And it's like, oh, I got 3 gifts, 1 each day. It's so nice. So maybe I won't kill him after all. That's what his plan is. Not a bad plan. And then he says, but just in case that doesn't work, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to split our forces in half. Because if he kills this, Team A, Team B can still survive. I am investing my resources broadly diversified, so it's a very sound strategy. And all that's about to happen in the midst, the wrestling with the angel occurs in the midst of that, and then he wakes up, presumably, and he's getting ready to meet his brother, and that's where the story picks up again. It's really quite fascinating. Now Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided his children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 maids. The 2 maids means the maids with whom he had children. He put the maids with their children in front. Now, if you've ever had your dad's favorite, this is a fantastic example of a hierarchy of love within the family. So there's a term in video games, meat shield. So who do I want first? You know what I'm talking about? Who do I want first in case they're firing arrows or slinging stones? I'm going to be in the back behind all my children. And I'm going to put the maids, so the least important, you're up front and your kids. I mean, is that not what he's doing? There's no way to soft pedal that. And then, okay, who's my next favorite? Okay, Leah. You're the good personality wife I married first. You're next. And then my favorite one. Remember Rachel? She was beautiful and so wonderful and talented. And then, who goes very last? Joseph. Who's Joseph?
His favorite son.
His favorite son. Sorry, everybody else, that's not the favorite son. So very clearly, has Jacob, who for God's sakes just wrestled with an angel or God and came out even, it's a draw. the night before, has he fundamentally changed his character or personality? Is he suddenly a better person? Not if you stick all your family first to meet the soldiers. Maybe he can get away. Kind of lame. He himself, but he himself goes on ahead of them. That's something, is it not? He goes on ahead of them, bowing to the ground 7 times as he came near his brother. What's 7 mean in Judaism?
Many, but a sense of completeness, right? It's more than one, obviously, but that 7 is a totality or a whole.
Would we say, when one says 40 in Judaism, what does that mean?
That means many moons.
Many moons, a while, a lot. Not everything, but a lot. 7 is a perfect number. Completeness, wholeness, a good or holy number. So I bowed the perfect number of times. So here's all my family lined up. Here are a bunch of gifts. And then now, hey, sorry I stole your birthright and ran off with all your stuff. So I think you're really awesome and important. I view this as meeting, it's just easy for me to imagine. The foreigners going to meet the local prince or chief, or you're going to meet the mob boss, or you're going to meet the movie star, whoever's the star of your life. You're completely deferential. That's what's happening. Even though Jacob is very rich and relatively powerful, he's making sure that he is deferential to this. And what does he expect to happen? Jacob, what does he expect to happen in the meeting with Esau?
He doesn't expect it to go well.
He doesn't expect it to go well. Very good answer. There are variations of they're bad to really bad. It does not appear that he expects Esau will welcome him with open arms and we're going to be reconciled and, happily ever after. If I give him enough presents, if I put enough people between me and him, maybe he won't kill all of us and take all my stuff. It's versions of bad. Did you want to jump in?
Well, we've sort of
Because
built
the
up...
next one is about to be your...
Yes, right. So Jonathan's done a nice job for us in inviting us to sort of appreciate the tension that's building, or the sense of expectation or anticipation or fear, all that goes into what's going to happen on the morrow when you go home again, or when you meet up with the long-lost sibling with whom you had a falling out years ago, right? We all had those moments on the near horizon where we're flush with emotion. I often, just before officiating at a wedding, when meeting with just the wedding party, will introduce a word called eustress, which is the prefix EU, stress. And when it's a eu as in euphoria, is a prefix which means happy or excited. And so when we're anticipating something that's good, or we've been waiting a long time for, we just can't wait. That's our bodies process that like stress. We can imagine in much the same way that Jacob is going through a slurry perhaps of emotions when he anticipates meeting up with Esau. So let's look at verse 33:4, which is to say, are they numbered here? Yes. But Esau, having done all this, sent the people the gifts ahead and divided up his family and his company, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Lots of nouns and verbs. But significantly, and if you have this handout, what I want to point out to you is that we could talk about, and we should say something about each of these moments as Esau runs to meet Jacob, as he embraced him, fell on his neck, kissed him, and then the two of them weep. There are 15 places. The number 15 is not significant in this way, but there are 15 places within the Torah, within the first 5 books of the Bible, where the scribes who have transmitted this text, ideally faithfully, since maybe the year 500 to 800, which is when we have a definitive text that we call the Masoretic text. Masorah is a Hebrew word which means tradition. And so the Masoretic texts, or the Masoretes, were the ones who created the definitive edition, if you will, because we can appreciate that both with oral traditions and then with scribes working in all kinds of different places, errors would creep in, or variations would creep into the text. And so the Masoretic text is considered the definitive text. And in that text, there are these places, one of which happens to be in 33:4, wherein extra marks, punctuation, or dots, or detail are added. It's particularly significant because in the Hebrew biblical text, or the Torah text, there are no vowels. Hebrew typically works with vowels as subscription and superscription. So if you've seen a Hebrew text, or you Google a Hebrew paragraph, what have you, if it's vocalized, that is if it includes the vowels, which, say, a newspaper typically doesn't, then you would see all these different dots and lines that are up above and below the text, above the words. But in this particular place, while the Torah text has none of that punctuation, there is above this word, which means, and he kissed him, these dots. And these dots are passed down in the tradition as the official version of the text. It's sort of a metacritical piece, because by tradition it suggests that there's something going on within this phrase. There's something about this word which demands your attention. And more importantly than demanding your attention is that it serves to invite you to read that particular word or that particular phrase or event with a greater attention to detail, or an appreciation of what you bring to the text, because in much the same way as Jonathan was describing the Passion Gospel in John, that uses words, or in fact referring to the Jews, which would have meant something in one direction at a certain time and mean something else in a different way. These are all translations, obviously, right? So they're not themselves authoritative, although they come to be the traditional text with which we're familiar. There's something going on that invites you to be part of that text. So in good rabbinic tradition, if we were to appreciate the tension that's been building up, the anticipation of this re-encountering your sibling with whom you had not only had a falling out, but you have reason to believe the sibling intends you great harm, the moment they embrace and it says they kissed, or he kissed him, there's something else going on. And in the rabbinic tradition, you'll see references here and on the back of the page. There's discussions about what it means when it says he kissed him. Because, we use two interesting insights. You know from your own experience that what a kiss can contain can be very loving and intimate. It can mean all kinds of things, affection. If you kiss on the cheek, you kiss someone's hand, kisses. And it's actually a rather vulnerable, dangerous moment, right? When you're that close to someone, or a kiss and a bite are very close. Just to sweeten it, that you jump in. In Hebrew, the word for kiss is nishika. And the word for weapon, meaning typically a sidearm, is a neshek. And so the root is the same. So what's contained in a kiss or in an embrace? And if you think about, Johnson makes references to the New Testament's use of this moment of a kiss and what it suggests or what's going on there, so are we invited to do it. Not so that we come up with a definitive answer of what it actually means, but rather that we can appreciate, given what we understand was going on for Esau and Jacob. We get a little bit of insight into Jacob's anticipation. We don't know what Esau, right? It's just a projection onto Esau from Jacob as to what Esau brings by way of his own emotional expectations or his own desires for what this moment will mean. You can imagine they've both been anticipating this for a very long time. This idea of, and he kissed him, or he embraced him, and then they weep. What's going on there? That's the verse we want to focus on.
Yeah. So, how I am, I think how most people are, how many times or ways do you think Esau, for his part, and Jacob on his part, rehearsed how this moment was supposed to go? What I'd say, standing in front of the mirror for us, or trying to look at your reflection. I'm going to get him. Man, I thought of what I was going to burn him with later, but I couldn't think of it at the time. Or I'm going to say this, and he'll get his comeuppance, or maybe I'll forgive him. You rehearse every scenario. And it suggests, anyway, the story for Jacob, is that he is scared. And how would he react when Esau, big bad burly Esau, comes ran to meet him? Are you excited? Oh my God, he's running. What are the 400 men with him doing? And there's got to be uncertainty at the very least, along with other things. Aaron, I don't think said this explicitly. There's a dot over every letter, every Hebrew letter. That is a giant flashing pay attention to me sign over the word kiss. And so it doesn't necessarily mean what it first appears to mean. If you don't see a loved one for a long time and he or she hugs and kisses you, or when I go home and my dog licks me 100 times, it's a greeting, it's an affection, it's a welcome. But what else can a kiss suggest? Acknowledgement. It could be a very simple greeting, like in France, for example. Aaron and I were talking about in some mob movies, there's a kiss of death. It's a symbol there. The symbol of, I think it's Luke 22, Judas betrays Jesus with what? A kiss. And it was interesting, Aaron and I were talking about this. So it's Judas gives the kiss, not Jesus. And it means different things depending on the person there at the time. To the Roman soldiers, what did the kiss mean? Or the temple police, the police there, what did it mean? This is the symbol. So of all the people there, they don't know who Jesus is. The one I go up and give a kiss to, oh, it's that guy. Because, all the Jews look the same. All the white guys look the same. All the whatever. They don't know. They're stupid people. Oh, that one. That's why we got to go rest. To the disciples, to Jesus, what does the kiss mean? Betrayal. Right, Jan. It's betrayal of the worst. You're one of us. Oh my gosh, you ratted us out for 30 pieces of silver? You were there from the beginning, Judas. Well, how could you do this? Two totally different things with one gesture. So what does, on the face value, what does Esau ran, embraced him? We got that. Fell on his neck. Is that a good translation, Hebrew?
Yes.
Fell on his neck, which is weird, and kissed him. What could that kiss range of meanings? Because that's not an empty gesture. He ran up and punched him in the cheek. Hey, little brother, I haven't seen you in a long time. Or they were like, that would be reasonable to have a brother relationship. Or call him, hey, you big stupid head, Mom always liked you best. Pop. Oh, yeah, we're friends again. That's what that would mean. But a kiss, what could a kiss mean? And come up with ideas. In this context, what could it mean? Allison? That was the kiss of death. Or sealed with a kiss would be another one. So it could be at face value, I've missed you so much, everything is forgiven, let's be reconciled, the two brothers again. It could mean that. Or it could mean the opposite, could it not? And why are those dots all over there? Pay attention to this. So it's not what it first seems. Is the kiss, one way to think of this, sincere or not sincere? Who thinks it's sincere? Maybe a few of you. Who thinks the kiss from Esau to Jacob is not sincere? Okay, well that was... I hope you vote for the political things where you can't just do this. Or can I vote for everybody? What makes it sincere? Let me ask it that way. Yeah.
What would Esau believe if it wasn't sincere? Are there any doubts over that?
Have you, so why would Esau weep if it's not sincere? Have you ever experienced someone crying, we even have a term, crocodile tears, or faking being sad or excited or whatever? Probably, you're right.
Let's just deepen it, though. Rabbi Gerald Wolpe, a blessed memory, conservative rabbi in Philadelphia. His son David Wolpe is a well-known rabbi insofar as rabbis earn renown. Gerald Wolpe taught that the reason they weep, or the reason they cry, in juxtaposition to what Jonathon had suggested about rehearsing the moment, standing in front of the mirror, what have you, there were no mirrors at that time. That's a very fancy thing, right? A mirror, putting silver or some reflective coating behind glass or right, what your reflection is. And it was only upon seeing each other or perhaps embracing each other. You can imagine they used to wrestle or they knew each other's bodies before. They appreciated for the first time how much time had been squandered but with this estrangement. They're twins after all, but they don't know how their own face is aging, or they don't appreciate fully how much time has passed until they see their brother, their twin,
you got
who is
old,
so much
you got
older.
fat.
That's also part of it. So maybe Esau approached with one intention and found himself in a very different place emotionally than he didn't expect. We don't know, right? That's the invitation. Yes.
So I'm reminded of like a parable we studied last year, parable of the son.
Yes.
Another time when someone comes home, right, have been in bad places or feeling like his contact being rejection.
Excellent.
And the father embraces them, kisses them, slaughters the fatted calf, all this good. So
Did you all hear that?
there are other points in the Bible, like where this is a welcome.
Nate Goldstar is drawing a comparison to a parable of Jesus, what we often call the prodigal son. You probably should better call the prodigal the lavishly generous father. That there's another story where a son went away, squandered his living with prostitutes and stuff. Well, maybe I'll go back to work for dad. At least I'll be a hired hand, if not a son anymore. And instead of treating him like trash or disowned him, he runs out, looks for him, runs out, embraces him, kisses him, slaughters the calf, meaning we have a feast, puts a gold ring on his finger, and welcomes him back immediately. There is definitely a parallel with that story and this one. The outcome is not exactly the same. You can say the meaning might even be different, but it's definitely there. Similar to Judas giving a kiss, a betrayal, there's this kiss isn't exactly what it necessarily means, but it could be. And remember, is there one right answer of interpretation for this story? Well, there's one right answer. The answer is no. And particularly if what I have learned with being partnered with Aaron is, oh my gosh, Jews, you have 10 Jews and 20 opinions about what this means or what it is, and that's a good thing. Christians tend to, what's the right answer or the correct answer? This story invites questions for us to reflect on, and how old is this story?
Well, in written form, we think it's about 2,400 years ago.
2,400 years old, written form. So orally, probably a lot before that. The story has endured for a very long time because people keep drawing meaning from it for thousands of years. Do you want to say more?
Well, I was going to say that I do want to say a little bit more. The stories endure because we all have had these moments, right? They're universally true in a mythic way, wherein you leave home, can you go home again? Or can you never go home again? Are you always welcome back, right? What's going on? We anticipate a certain emotional reaction or connection. Either it's no longer there, or it's still there in spite of what's taken place. We've all been in situations where, perhaps particularly with family or loved ones, we anticipate events unfolding in a particular way. We've rehearsed them, as Jonathon was suggesting, and we're completely surprised by how differently we experienced it. I imagined to have tremendous resolve, and I just melted at the moment when I had the opportunity to embrace my sibling again, or when, I finally saw mom or dad, or whatever it might be. And that's what makes these stories, to my mind, so incredibly powerful and enduring, right? Your thoughts about what it means that he ran, embraced him.
Is this story true? Did it actually happen? Who knows? But it's true because similar things happen over and over again.
That's right. That's right.
Who had their hand up just now?
So, as I see it, when Esau takes off running and pounces on him, he's like TJ Watt, attacking and tackling him to the ground, and he's ready to tear his throat out, truly. And then something happens. There's a moment of almost transformation between the two of them, where the exhaustion on Esau's part of having been so angry for so long, and the exhaustion on Jacob's part for having carried so much guilt, still being the way that he is about it. I think that sometimes when you're so exhausted, there's nothing you can do but cry. And I wonder if that's where it is. They both hit this rock bottom point and then are able to cry, weep together, and some of it lightens, it lessens.
Fantastic multiple points. And again, kudos, bonus points for a Steelers reference. The draft is coming up, so I'll try to get this right. So Esau sees his brother, takes off running like T.J. Watt. Do you know T.J. Watt? Everybody know T.J. Watt? Mean Joe Green, that also worked. A Steelers football player. I see a few of the looks like no. So the big, tough Steelers football player is running straight at the quarterback. That's Jacob. And I'm going to crush him. And I'm going to hit him high and hard. And really, I'm going to love this. And he takes off running and he gets there. And something happens, recognition. And imagine, she said, the guilt that Jacob carried all these years. How many years again was it they were apart? 20? 20 years? As I made the remark, you got old, you got fat, you got gray, you lost your hair. Are they the same people as they were 20 years ago? Somewhat, yeah. But in other ways, they were single men. Now they've got families. Now they got monies, careers. They've gone totally different directions, but there's still a connection to them. And imagine all the guilt and perhaps other feelings Jacob was carrying around. Imagine if you've ever I've had experiences like this, where you've borne this terrible emotional weight for all these years, the anger, the self-righteousness that Esau must have had. I was right. I am the oldest son. I'm the one I was cheated. Mom cheated me out of this. All that anger and hurt, he's borne for 20 years. And the guilt and whatever associated feelings Jacob has, and suddenly those just disappear. Oh my God, why was I mad that long? I don't even care about that anymore, really. Have you ever experienced something like that? Some encounter, person, thing, event, where whatever you felt, negative emotion, suddenly evaporates. Wheezy?
Jonathan, I'm wondering if this story could possibly be pointing us in the direction of God's love for us, where He pays us the intolerable compliment of loving us regardless.
That was stated in such a Wheezy-like manner. Well said. God pays us the intolerable comment of loving us. Compliment of loving us. Yes, and one way of looking at this so far, this whole reunification or reuniting, is God a part of this at all? You could read it yes or no or maybe, at least those three ways. But is God bringing two people together? I'll just say this is a theological confession. I don't think God just does stuff. In my experience, it's more God puts people in proximity with one another to make things happen or not, that it's always our choice to do it. And Jacob and Esau came together. They could have chosen to react very differently. You know what? I'm still mad, and I'm not going to give that up. I choose to be angry. Or, you know what? I'm glad I stole that from you, you jerk. Mom always did like me best, and you're stupid. Or whatever siblings say to one another. It appears by saying that several people said that they wept. All that emotional baggage just suddenly got let go. Stopped burdening them. Stopped being dragged around by them. And one could say, a la Weezy, that this is an image, we would say in the prayer book, a foretaste of thy heavenly banquet. This reunion and release of negativity, of sin, is a foretaste of what heaven is like. There's a reconciliation to a degree, and there is a sense of release of the negative, of sin. That is one way to talk about what heaven is. So certainly in that way, this is an epiphany, a manifestation of the divine. Great point, Weezy.
I'm wondering if we were to read this verse and bring to it an expectation that it's going to go completely badly, right? They're going to embrace, which is they're going to grab at each other and wrestle to the ground.
Or bam, right in your back.
Right. Or we understand this Nishika or Nishikahu that kissed him, but let's understand it as bit him or did him violence in that moment. And then weeping itself. We weep for joy, we cry for joy, but maybe they both were really hurt physically in this encounter. And in this little piece called The Love Bite, which I found online, they go through different interpretations, and there's a very fanciful one in which Jacob's neck turns to marble. That's what it was imagined. Sort of he's impervious, somehow he's protected from the bite, but Esau, who now bites into a piece of marble, is suffering some serious dental problems as a result, and that's incredibly painful. Or we bring it with, we approach the text with a complete expectation that things are going to go really swimmingly. Or that's the story we want to tell. Imagine two lawyers in a courtroom arguing with these facts. Well, it's up to interpretation as to, or, as some commentators suggested, in the maybe category, they approach each other with one set of expectations or emotions, and before it's done, they have a different understanding of each other and themselves. And any of those are not inappropriate to use by way of bringing meaning to the text and making it thereby more meaningful or full of meaning. Makes sense? Sort of
Can we
fascinating.
pick this up next week? I don't want to there's a lot of other interesting stuff in this chapter rather than letting it go. We'll pick up 33 next week.